Thank you all for coming out. I feel warm. It's cold, but I feel warm. Thank everybody for coming. I know it's cold. We're not going to keep you out here long, but we want to bring some awareness to what is going on for those who couldn't read the 208-page grand jury report. So I'm Tanita. I'm an activist, a mother, a writer. I've lived in this county for 22 years. I want to first say that the land upon which we gather is part of the traditional territory of the Lenni Lenape called Lenape-Hoking. We acknowledge the Lenni Lenape as the original people of this land and their continuing relationship with their territory. I want to acknowledge all the dedicated community activists who stand united today to bring awareness to this spirit-murdering culture supported by the criminalization of mostly Black and brown children through the educational survival complex and the criminal legal system. Thank you all for your dedication. I'm not a politician or organization, just a mother and member of this community who loves our great asset, our youth. So you'll hear from one of the persons responsible for exposing the countless stories of abuse. You'll also hear from several youth leaders who will courageously speak about their firsthand experiences in Lima and similar kid prisons. Then we'll close out with a call to action and some energizing chants, as you already heard, to warm you up, elevate our voices, and get us motivated to do this work. So I also want to let you know to please follow Care Not Control, Delco Resists, DayOneNotDayTwo, and UDTJ on Instagram and all social media platforms to get more information about the work that they're all doing. So why are we here? As you heard inside, there's been a gross mismanagement and lack of oversight of the Delaware County Juvenile Detention Center. Under the current council's care, the detention center was forcibly closed March 2021. 9 youth have filed suits in federal court. They operated like a jail instead of a place for youth awaiting trial. They were denied appropriate access to education, heat, and plumbing, often forced into solitary confinement without the required judge's signature. The policy was 4 hours. They were also often in the cells for days. Youth lived in cells with crude and hateful graffiti referencing suicide. There was mold, rodents, because the janitorial staff did not clean the units. This facility consistently operated several hundred thousands under budget. The director was hired with no prior experience and referred to youth as felons. The Board of Managers is required for counties running a detention center, but ours was formed 3 months after it was closed. Nothing about the detention center was therapeutic or rehabilitative. Video cameras were not working. Delaware County Council consistently refused to provide funding to upgrade and add video surveillance. Staff were underpaid 40% lower than any surrounding county. The county council did not approve sufficient increase. Danielle DiMatteo, chief of probation, the county council, and judiciary all failed to enact and enforce best practices. They were under-engaged and thus permitted lack of accountability and the abusive culture. LGBTQ youth were bullied, called names by staff. Youth reporting to Childline were punished by way of no food or being physically abused. One officer even eventually pled guilty to sexual assault. Shame! The investigators, after the facility was closed, found incomplete files and evidence of shredded documents. Counselors reported the detention center as toxic and one stated that they cried every night they left. There was a female who, after having a relationship with one of the staff, underage, thought that they were going to get married. When she left, she turned to drugs and wanted to commit suicide. The list goes on and on. As a mother, it was painful to read this entire report. The Board of Managers is pushing to reopen a facility twice the size, 3 times the number of beds, with no acknowledgement, as you heard, of the abuse culture, no response to the grand jury report. They refuse to give youth a spot on the Board of Managers. They're intent on renovating the secure section first, without state certification nor any documented plan to care for detained youth or commitment to community-based centers, restorative justice, or any recommendations of the Juvenile Task Force. Youth were abused, mistreated, harassed, and denied their legal rights to food, clothing, humane treatment, appropriate education, living conditions, and rehabilitation. We worry about the crime and the victims, but this culture of systemic abuse, which guarantees recidivism and exponentially increases the rate of reoffense, begets more violence and less public safety. You can find the full juvenile task report on pacourts.us and the full grand jury report on attorneygeneral.gov. There is a saying by Maasai warriors, when they greet each other, they say, "How are the children?" before they say anything else. The response should be, "All the children are well." My dream is that one day we'll be able to say, "All the children are well." And I want to, that was a lot. All right, so I want to now bring up Olivia, who worked for the Public Defender's Office and one of the whistleblowers, and the reason that we have uncovered all of this abuse and it was brought to the Attorney General. Olivia, thank you so much for being here.
Again, my name is Olivia Rosenberger, and I was one of the whistleblowers who spoke up about the abuse and neglect that was occurring at Delaware County Juvenile Detention Center. I was a therapist there from October 2019 through December 2020. During my time at Lima, I met some staff who truly went above and beyond for the residents there. However, I unfortunately also met higher-ups and detention officers who viewed the residents as criminals and treated them as such. I also met some staff that wanted to do good and speak up for the youth at the center, but felt stuck between a rock and a hard place because they needed a job, though the job did not pay much. I witnessed living facilities for our Delaware County youth that had bug and bee infestations, as well as mice. I saw the rooms that the kids stayed in, many of which were dirty, graffitied, and had plumbing issues. I also witnessed detention officers stand by and allow a resident to attempt suicide. And I'm grateful every day that I happen to walk into the room. I heard a supervisor telling a resident that no one would believe his story after a probation officer made a child line report against staff because he was a juvenile delinquent, and that staff was an officer of the courts. Myself and my CGRC colleagues made a number of child line reports during our time there that were dismissed as unfounded. 2 of those incidents that I made child line reports for are detailed in the grand jury reports, and there should be plenty of information to allow criminal charges. We even went to our supervisor at CGRC there for help, and he told us not to rock the boat so we wouldn't lose our contract.
Shame. Shame.
I took the position at the detention center with the desire to guide at-risk youth to find a better path,
to show them encouragement and support and to rehabilitate them. Not to further traumatize them, belittle them, or make them feel like criminals or bad kids, which is what most of the staff and higher-ups did there. When I realized that my many attempts to advocate for these kids were not being heard within the detention walls, I realized that I needed to leave and find another way. Luckily, I found someone who was willing to listen to myself, the other three whistleblowers, and the kids who were actually experiencing this abuse. And that person was Christopher Welsh. Woo! Yeah! Delco needs to do better for our youth in the delinquency system and our youth in general. Most, if not all, of these kids come from trauma after trauma, and they need to feel seen and shown compassion. Consequences to delinquent behavior are necessary, but they need to be trauma-informed and age-appropriate consequences.
Yes.
Kid jail was not the answer, and it will never be the answer.
That's right.
The answer lies in our youth voices, and we need to actually listen. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Bree, who has their own story and is so bravely turning it into creative ways and coming out here and meeting youth and just educating us. So give it to Bree.
Hi everyone, my name is Bree Stoves. I'm a youth organizer with the Care Not Control Coalition and a youth advocate with the Juvenile Law Center. Over the past few years, I've been in a detention center, and I've experienced a lot of harmful things as staff egging on kids to fight each other, lack of education and mental health support. The time that I've spent there didn't consider toward the time that I actually was placed, which actually resulted in extended time that I was incarcerated. And it was a lot of abuse of authority going on. What higher up staff feeling like, whatever they says goes, and they can do whatever they want to these children. It is unacceptable that children are in a facility where these conditions are this dangerous, but there should never be this many children in the facility at all.
Right.
Our leaders should invest in our communities and alternatives instead of incarceration, rather than locking more kids up and sending them farther away from their families. They need to invest in restorative justice programs that are proven to work and hold youth accountable without causing more harm. We need to treat children like children and demand better from our leaders. That's why me and the Care Not Control Coalition is out here today using our voices to remind you that we do not need more or any facilities because they're harmful, and incarceration is not the solution. Thank y'all.
Right. Woo!
Thank you, Bree. It's not the solution. Next up, we will have Amara. Amara is gonna, if you were inside, you heard her speak. I've heard her speak several times about her experience in the detention center, and I give you Amara. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amara, for those that don't know my name. And I had ended up making a small mistake, which was fighting. And I end up in, incarceration. And I end up changing my life and, getting myself together. But it wasn't from within the prison, because I would sit down and watch youth fight in there. They gave us shortage of food, it felt like leftovers. When I spoke to the therapist about some of the things that was going on, it got to a point where I had to get personal. Like, miss, I had my own trauma. I came from an abusive home, and I'm coming here to be even more abused, which scares me, because it's like, I don't know what shape I'm going to be in when I leave this facility. And, I still have problems with sleeping because I'm always jumping because I don't know what's going to happen. And it's sad. And for some of the people that did speak in there to make statements about stuff, but if your kid was one of us, y'all would do anything in y'all power to permit them from getting anywhere near that building.
That's right.
If you put a dog in a cage, what is that considered? Incarceration. You don't let somebody out because you feel like it. And it's crazy that these staff members that probably don't care about these youth, that write down all these different evaluations and stuff, but what if they're not accurate? What if that staff member have a personal issue? Because that's the thing. Adults having problems with children. That's the new norm nowadays. And for a child to not be able to be considered telling the truth over an adult, I find that to be sickening. Because I'm a mother of a son. My son will always be heard. And I'm going to always hold him to the truth. So again, justice for the youth.
Woo! Yeah.
Thank you, Amara. Did I get the name right?
Yeah.
All right. So next we're going to have Jude, who is going to share his story as well. Thank you for coming out, Jude.
Thank you very much.
Woo!
Hello, how y'all doing this evening?
Hey, Jude.
All right, so I'm here to let y'all know I was in St. Gabriel's Hall. I was in Summit Academy. I was in Vision Quest. I know how it felt. I was a part of Sucker Free Sunday, where I watched individuals get beat up on Sunday for cheesesteaks and things like that. I watched the staff members sit there and talk dirty about the children when they were going through some of their personal hygiene issues. I've watched it. I've watched every one of these people look down on us as being young adjudicated delinquents. Listen how they talking about the children. Adjudicated delinquent. I asked a group of young men the other day. I said, what does the word conviction mean to you? The first thing they thought of was a jail conviction. Why is our children so desensitized to jails, institutions, and death? Why is that? Why do we not have programming? Why do we not have advocates, mentors out here for the children, beating their feet on these streets for our children? Why do we not have that?
That's right.
These are the individuals with the answers to these questions that work inside these buildings, that patrolling these cars. We don't have these individuals on the front line for our children. So I stand here today. All of us stand here today to front line for our children, to front line for everything that we stand for when it comes down to keeping our children out of these cages. We need to keep our children out of the cages because once their minds are stuck in that cage, they can never get out, no matter how far you let their body go anywhere in this world.
That's right. Yes.
Excuse me, y'all. I had to catch my breath, but I want to say this as well. Not only do we have to ask them not to condemn our youth, but we have to stop playing the role of letting them condemn our youth and agreeing with them as well. Yeah, we have to stand by our children.
That's right.
When they show up to these courtrooms and show up to these court cases, we have to stand by our children and let them know that if you lock them up, you lock us up too. But you don't lock us up physically, you lock us up emotionally. When we have to answer the phone calls for our children, that's a hard one to deal with. 15 minutes once a week. There's 84,600 seconds in a day. Can you times that by 7? And we only get 15 minutes to talk to our families? When we were in juvenile placement, we have to go across the states and other states just so we can get rehabilitated.
Shame.
The keys to our success is not behind locking somebody behind a gate. The keys is in our communities with our mentors and our advocates. I am a wellness coordinator from DayOneNotDayTwo, yes, and I'm out here in these streets for us.
All right,
All right, Jude.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody feeling warmed up after all of this conversation? I am.
Yes.
All right. And so, last but not least, before we start marching, is my son, Andre.
Go, Andre.
We're seen in spaces together so often that people think that that's my son. I would be proud to have him as my son. But he is the lead advocate for Youth Arts Self-Empowerment Project and executive director of DayOneNotDayTwo. And he has experience, unfortunately, of being in this detention center and others in this county. So I'm going to hand it over to Andre.
Can y'all help me get warmed up real quick? That's what I'm saying. What's outrageous?
Kids in cages.
What's outrageous?
Kids in cages.
What's outrageous?
Kids in cages.
Thank you. I needed that, y'all. It's sickening being in on these meetings and watching a whole bunch of people that aren't from our community, that don't look like us, that don't care about us, making decisions about us. You know, there's no young people involved in this process other than to, you know, measure how big they want the cells to be. You know, you have a board member who is there to represent the workers of the prison. You have a board, somebody on that board who's there to represent all those who lost jobs because of the facilities shutting down. But we don't have anybody to represent the victims of this system. That kills me inside, and I'm sickened every time that I see that. Like Tanita said, I was unfortunately incarcerated in Lima. That was my first experience with the criminal legal system. I was thrown in a cell for 23 hours out of the day. You know, I didn't know when I would get my next meal. It was up to whatever staff was on at the time. And I struggled so much that I don't even like thinking about it. I don't even like transporting back there because I go through a lot of trauma still to this day. I was there for a fight with my brother. I was charged with aggravated assault, a felony one, for a fight with my brother. If I was from Middletown, if I was from Media or Swarthmore, I never would have been arrested, let alone charged.
That's right.
But I was thrown away in a cage because I'm a kid from Chester. I'm black and come from a poor family. So my life was worth less than if I was from an affluent area. And unfortunately, that got me that label of a criminal, a label of a felon, and I carried that with me everywhere I go. I could not escape that. Like my brother June said, I could not escape the cage that was in my mind after I left. And so now we're here, I'm working with the Care Not Control campaign, the Youth Art and Self-Empowerment Project, DayOneNotDayTwo, and we're fighting back against putting kids in cages. We're fighting to end youth incarceration because statistics show it does not work.
That's right.
The majority of young people who are put in these facilities end up going back into the facilities. It's called institutionalizations. I have friends that call me from jail right now because they can't get right. Because these facilities harm them so bad. The trauma is ancestral and it's just in them. And I hurt for them. I cry for them at night. Because my brothers are not here with me on these front lines, and I see the traps that they lay for us. I see the traps they lay for our people. I'm in the school board meetings where the school teachers are begging for funding. They're begging for books. They have no teachers for special programming. But we have millions of dollars to put into this prison, to put into throwing our kids away. I'm walking through parks without swings, libraries without books. But we want to spend the money to knock down a facility and build up another one when the community is telling you that this is not what we need. We need restorative justice.
Yes.
We need mental health programming.
Yes.
We need food resources. We need to address housing insecurities. We don't need another facility. And so I'm thankful for all of you for coming out, for standing with us today. Because regardless, I don't care what law that they're quoting that say they need a facility by state law. I don't care. Somebody needs to show me that. And even when they show me, we're going to organize against that thing.
That's right.
You know, I don't care what you're reading on that paper because my people are right here.
That's right.
So, what's outrageous?
Kids in cages.
What's outrageous?
Kids in cages.
What's outrageous?
Kids in cages.
We're going to continue to speak out against this. We're going to continue to fight back. We're hosting a town hall January 12th in Chester. Follow Care Not Control, follow DayOneNotDayTwo, yes, to get the events, the locations. But that town hall is going to be focused on solutions. It's going to be focused on organizing against this and doing what we need for the community. So please tell your friends, tell your family, please come out. Thank y'all for being here today, man. I appreciate and love every one of y'all.
Like Andre said, we're going to have a series of town halls all throughout this county. So please keep up with social media to find out what's going on, when, and what time and what date. So now we want to have Dana and Keith from CABI Delco to come up and talk about the work that they're doing.
First, my name is Dana Lomax Eller. I am the president of CABI Delco. What does that stand for? I'm glad you asked. CABI stands for Coalition to Abolish Death by Incarceration. And what do we do? I'm glad you asked that too. We fight against the injustices in the judicial, the penal, and the prison system. Right? We have right now, over 100 members behind the walls. right? We have also several that has been wrongly convicted in Delaware County, right? That Jack Stolzheimer refuses to answer any of their appeals.
Fuck Jack.
I agree. I agree. But I like to read this. If the soul is left in darkness, sins will be committed. Hello? You hear that? The guilty one is not he who commits the sin, but the one who causes the darkness.
That was a quote from Victor Hugo. Delaware County has created a condition of darkness, as our dear sister said. First of all, it's dark because we're on stolen land. You can never have justice on land that is stolen until there's a confession made, until there's an act of repentance and that's seeking forgiveness for what has happened.
That's right.
And as we stated earlier, George Steiny, a 14-year-old mentally challenged black child, was murdered by this county. And that was in Glen Middle School, another juvenile institution. So we have a historical precedent for the mistreatment of black juveniles in this county, which has not been addressed. And his lame exoneration without any acknowledgement that it was a state-sponsored execution is simply adding on to the fact that what we just experienced here tonight and what's been going on is a continuation of a county without a conscience.
That's right.
A county without a conscience. So I salute all of you that are here tonight, and I pray that we stay together, stay in this fight, stay on the front line. Because when I hear people call themselves public servants, no, you are public servants.
That's right.
They're making 6 figures plus. Madden is a millionaire. He's not a public servant. We have to understand who these people really are.
That's right.
They don't live the way you live. Their bank account is not like your bank account. But they're appointees and cronies that have a vested interest in seeing this happen. And we have a vested interest in seeing that it don't happen. Thank you.
Bam!
Yes. Woo. That's right.
Thank you. So this is going to be the last finale before we start marching and heading to Warmth. The only elected official that has shown up for us tonight, State Representative Carol Kazim, is going to come up to the mic. We're so proud of her and honored to have her here.
That's the people's representative.
Good evening, everybody. Besides me being a state representative, thank you very much. First and foremost, I try to let everybody know that when it does come down to it, I'm here for the people. And I'm here today actually speaking as a mother, and most of all as a black mother who has a black son, a black daughter, as a black auntie, and also care about all children as well, because when it comes to opening up my home, I've opened it up to many who has been in Lima as well, and many kids that still are running the streets who have not even yet have been in there, and I prefer that they don't. Today I'm actually out here for the simple fact that I really don't want to continue to see the same trend and pattern that we've been seeing for a very long time. I've said it over and over and over again. It has been long overdue that this time was coming when we actually knew that there was going to be a time we was going to face this with Lima. What I don't want is a bandage and seeing the repentance happen all over again when it comes to Lima Part 2, Part 3, Part 4, and beyond. We have to look at our children to know that they are our future, and the choices that we are actually making, the decisions that we're making, it must prioritize the children and what's in the best interest of them first.
That's right.
We have Mr. Sims up here talk about all the resources and everything that we need. Those are the things that are a priority right now to me.
Yes.
Those are the things that are important to us as families, as community members, as churches, as nonprofits, even the people that are actually sitting in there. Those board members in there, they have families. They're part of churches, organizations, whomever.
Yes.
But I'm actually here today to say collectively we have to come together to make sure that we prioritize these children. Because this is something that I'm honestly not even happy about. I would be a liar if I told you that I was happy about it. I would be a fool if I sat up here and told you that everything you guys are saying is wrong. No matter how nobody feels, no matter what is looked at from me, I'd rather stand on the right side because, as I said before, I'm a black mother first.
Yes.
Before anything else.
Yes.
Woo.
That part.
So I hope and I'm praying that the people that are making the decision, now I have to step out because I don't mean no harm to anybody that actually believes in certain religious beliefs, but I hope that you would allow God to instill everything inside of you and every decision that you make, that when you pick up that pen, remember the lives that you're actually putting in your hands. Remember that. Talk to God first about everything that you do. Because that's who. And that's who you're going to see on Judgment Day. And I'm only saying that because, as I said, I'm a black mother first. So when it comes to these kids being harmed, you can't answer no mom and no question about that. I'm telling you that right now. You can't explain that to nobody about how is their child going. We're still seeking answers about that in Glen Mills. We can't answer that. You can't go to nobody and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry your child has been abused. I'm sorry that they were under these conditions. It doesn't matter how pretty we fix it up. It's the resources that we need, like Mr. Sims said, that's actually going to prevent them from constantly going into buildings and facilities like that. That's what we need.
That's right.
So I'm just saying again, I'm sorry to go off the rims. I just had to turn around. It's not to put him on spot or anybody here, but because I look at them as black men standing here. So I would hope and believe that my brothers would do the right and the best choice. But I'm telling y'all right now, and I'm just asking y'all, when y'all go home, pray and put God first. Ask him what you should do. Ask him what is the best decision for you guys to make. And involve the community. These people are not crazy. What they're saying is not crazy. You heard stories from people that have been behind in line who shared these experiences. This is real life trauma. Trauma that we face as a community. This is something we have and must continue to make sure we fix. Not put a band-aid, fix. And we can't sleep until it's done. So thank y'all very much. I appreciate y'all for being out here. I know it's cold, but thank y'all for everything that y'all are doing. Thank you, Tonia, just for having me say a few words. I don't mean no harm and I mean no disrespect. But when it comes to it, God is the only one that I serve first. Thank you. Thank you. Here's to the black mamas. So thank you all again, everyone that came out and stood up at that podium, at the mic inside, and who spoke here tonight. You are courageous, and we need to continue to hear your stories. If this is the first time you're hearing about this, call up a neighbor, text a neighbor, tell them about it, send them the link to the grand jury report, send them the link to the task force report, connect them with social media. We need this information to be out. We need this community to be aware of what's happening here. It's no longer will we be silent. Juvenile Detention Center, we say no. Juvenile Detention Center, we say no. We need money for education, not for youth incarceration.
End youth incarceration now!
End youth incarceration now!
End youth incarceration now!
End youth incarceration now!
Brick by brick, stone by stone, bringing prison children home.
What's outrageous?
Prison cages!
What's outrageous?
Prison cages!
When our youth are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When our youth are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
The next action item, as Sunita stated, this is going to be a series of town halls, so stay tuned for more. But the first scheduled town hall is for Thursday, January 12th, 6:30 p.m. at the Keystone Wellness Center in Chester. So please save that date. As Andre stated, you can follow Care Not Control, you can follow YASP. The information is posted on there. You can ask any of us after the event if you want more clarification, but put it in your calendar for Thursday, January 12th, 6:30 p.m. For the Keystone Wellness Center in Chester, PA. Thank you everybody for coming, and thank you to all the brave people who not only came here today to share their stories, but in moments where it was really trying and it seemed like all the odds were stacked against you, you were courageous enough to stand up. And we see you, and we love you for that.
That's right.
Thank you.